Cinema is a complex and rapidly changing art form. There is a history of technology produced for the screen to improve the audience's experience and maintain their attention. In the late 1920s, this was sound.
Wait a minute, you ain't heard nothing yet. Wait a minute, I tell you, you ain't heard nothing.
Although the first talkies were short films screened as early as 1900, The Jazz Singer, released in 1927, was the first full-length picture featuring synchronized sound sequences. The introduction of sound constituted a significant shift, not just in the way people consumed cinematic media, but also in the acting styles and the technology required behind the scenes to produce talkies. However, this shift towards a more expressive medium was not embraced by all. Some pushed for cinema to evolve with synchronous sound, while others, like Charlie Chaplin, spoke of how it was ruining the great beauty of silence. His worry, like many others, stemmed from the idea that the power of this phenomenal art form came from its visual brilliance. Chaplin and many others felt that the addition of sound would simply force this medium to conform to the standard narrative of its predecessors, as literature and theatre had done before it, and, to an extent, I agree. There was something so undeniably magical about the cinema of attraction, a phrase coined by Tom Gunning. In a time before sound, filmmakers like George Méliès and William Hayes wanted to create a beyond-life spectacle. These may seem alien to modern standards, but, as Gunning stated, they solicit a highly conscious awareness of the film image, as well as throwing away the classic character narrative of average fiction to pour their efforts into visual ecstasy. This was when film was at its most unique.
Here comes your father.
Oh, I don't like him.
Your own father?
What's that got to do with it? If I don't like him, I don't like him, that's all.
The mid to late 20s birthed a problem for some. When sound became a sensation of cinema, and story narrative followed in the footsteps of its fictional counterparts, many actors like Clara Bow and Mae Murray struggled to make this transition from silent talkie stardom. As a result, for the sake of their careers, many silent film actors sensibly fought the emergence of sound. An issue here was bias based on accent. Audiences imagined that stars like Vilma Banky and Greta Garbo spoke with American accents. Banky, conversingly, was born and bred in Hungary, whereas Garbo was Swedish. The danger was that their accents would disrupt the perception and interpretation of the American darling by audiences, and they would be unable to accept the truth of their accents. Surprisingly, the Swedish voice of Garbo was seen as a fascination and a huge success in the 1930s. This indicated that sound had a huge part to play in strengthening a response from the audience and connecting the worlds of visual and audio. It is incredibly hard to choose a side in a situation where only one outcome is known, a world where sound operates with visuals seamlessly. Lucy Fisher states that for René Clair, as for many filmmakers of the silent era, the coming of sound was nothing short of a trauma. This fear of change is deeply embedded in us as humans, and it does not come unwarranted in this case. It was seen as a devastating threat to motion picture art. There was an overwhelming struggle to grasp this new technology for those behind the camera, and a huge step up in range for those who were in front of it. Clair himself referred to the talking image as a fearful monster, an unnatural creation, and regarded the Americans as a group of industrial Dr. Frankensteins attempting to fulfill a frightening prophecy. So the arrival of sound must have been a surprising and daunting prospect for those who had created the art of silent film. It amounted to nothing less than a revolutionary transformation of the medium. Whilst I do not feel these points make a strong case against sound, I recognise their validity in what was being left behind by entering this new era of cinema.
Drop your hands. Keep him up. For the love of St. Patrick, what's this? Everybody come out of the court.
Ultimately, the coming of sound brought an end to what Chaplin called the great beauty of silence, and hindered its more universal appeal. but it also birthed the most widespread and revolutionary art form of the 20th and 21st centuries. It created the closest form of art to reality. Murch stated that we are seemingly oblivious to how sound affects us in a deeper way than image does. It is a brilliant illusionary art that truly makes us believe that the sounds we hear in cinema are naturally coming from these great spectacles that we are seeing on screen. Ridstrom understood that sound was a purely emotional way of thinking about a movie. It binds us and invests us in the emotions of fear, sadness and joy that visuals could only have scratched the surface of. It is fascinating to wonder what cinema could have become if it had kept its purity of visual attraction. However, it almost certainly would not have been as impactful as it is today. However compelling the argument for a purely visual art form, it is unquestionable that the coming of sound does not represent a step backwards for the art of cinema. The beauty of sound is within its invisibility and its quest to draw us ever closer to the screen.